Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Inside the Orange podcast. The podcast all about understanding the people around us. Now, today's episode is the sad one. It's the season finale part 2. And it's the last podcast episode I'll be doing for a little while. So, it's kind of sad that we're doing this, but I wanted to go out today with a bit of a different approach. This is probably my most biographical podcast that I've done so far, and it involves the film Rocketman. So let's get into it. So this is the season finale part 2, Rocketman and me. Now, first of all, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has listened and watched on YouTube the season this year. So this is the end of season 2, which, considering the podcast isn't even a year old yet, is amazing to be sat here 28 episodes in. And I've had some absolutely fantastic guests. I've had some lovely comments, and I've grown some great people that have listened and found me through the podcast. So firstly, thank you so much for listening, and again, I do want to come back and I do want to record some more, but as I alluded to in the last episode, I'm going to be doing some writing, and I'm going to be working on the concept of the Inside the Orange, why I wanted to start it in the first place, and what the podcast was there to help me kind of do. So the podcast is by nowhere finished, but we are going to just go and have a look at different platforms and different ways, so we can just keep spreading the message. It's a positive message, and we want to spread it. I want to say a massive thank you to Born Anxious. I thank them a lot in these episodes, and I thank them. I'm wearing, as again, the Strong Dads Club Autism Awareness t-shirts that they so kindly sent through. I love the message of Born Anxious, and I'm so thankful that they allow me to wear them on the podcasts, and I spread their message. As always, if you go to the description or show notes, you will find their work, and again, just have a look. It's a wonderful message, it's a wonderful brand, and I'm privileged to be able to wear it on the podcast. So before I do get into today's biographical season finale part 2, I just want to say a massive thank you to the guests that I've had on. So my first guest this season was Sally Brider, an inspirational marathon runner who started running post-menopause, and she came and spoke so much about her running and her kind of life up until and during and through to where she is now with her running, and she's so inspirational. It's on the website, so all my guests that I've had, there is links to everybody's profiles via Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever they've got a kind of profile, I do it. So have a look at insidetheorange.co.uk, find Sally's work. But I was so honoured to have Sally on and to kind of talk about her message. So again, I just wanted to spend a bit of time today just thanking the guests, and starting with the amazing Sally Brider. It was also great to kind of go a bit full circle with Luke Bromley, so the guy that we worked together, nearly 10 years ago, I suppose. And it's just been lovely to see his career progress, and it was just amazing to hear his story and learn about him. And again, the idea of the Inside the Orange is about understanding people, and people you think you know, but then find out you don't really know them. And as I say, that is such a message for it. And Luke's doing amazing in his work, and I just hope he does. Wish him all the best, and I hope he has a fantastic future in whatever he does. Then we had Steve Gamlin. Now, Steve, for me, was someone that he reached out and said, can I come and do the podcast? He's done so much radio shows and podcasts this year, and he's just got such an amazingly positive message. And we had such a great conversation that ended up in what he called a gift, that I asked him a question that made him think differently about a story he's told for so long. And as I said at the time, it's like the gold medal when you ask these questions in interviews, and you get such a positive response. And I'm honoured that I've, since the episode, I've kind of kept in touch with Steve, as I try to do with everyone I interview on the podcast. I just try and keep around what they're doing, because I love their message, and I learn so much about these people. And Steve was my first interview where I kind of although I interviewed my cousin in episode 7 of the first season, first person kind of across the pond that I kind of spoke to, and it's brilliant. And that leads me into my next guest from the US, so Sam Mitchell. So actually 3 guests, Sam, Gina and Doug from the Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast. Again, it was lovely to talk to Sam. It was lovely to get Sam and his family's kind of approach to autism from their perspectives, and it was really important to kind of listen to that message. And again, I know that him and my son will have many a great WWE conversations and chats in the future, and I know that is definitely coming. And then to be blessed to be able to interview someone I hold in such a high regard of Anna Kennedy, OBE, whose work for autism in the UK is just phenomenal. Anna agreed to do the show, and I hope to have a great relationship with Anna going forward, and trying to support her charity, Anna Kennedy Online. There'll be more about that coming up soon, and but it was just immense to have such a wonderful story from an autistic person, or people, sorry, she's got 2 sons with autism, their mum, and it was great to get that perspective. It was really good. Then we had Nikki Love, the amazing 100 marathons in 100 days runner. Still massively inspiring. Now, I don't know if you've caught up with Nikki's story, but Nikki actually injured herself or picked up an injury, didn't injure herself, but she picked up an injury on day 13. And her goal has moved, but it's still going to be the goal. And she's such an inspirational person. Even through injury, she's been posting some things on TikTok and Instagram that just says this isn't going to beat her. She is going to get that 100 and 100 done. And I will be there at some point when she's doing it to cheer her on, because, again, such an amazing story, such an amazing person, and someone who is going to achieve amazing things. And then we took a little approach, a different approach. We did our first book review when author Richard Eckley sent us the book he'd written. It's a 30-minute coffee read that he sent, and I said, come and let's review it. And I know he's got more work out now, so there was an offer in the podcast episode. If you go back on Anchor or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube, you can see in the description that he has got an offer for his books. But I know he's got a book out now, or coming out very soon. So have a look at his work, as I say, via the website. Have a look at the links I've left for people at insidetheorange.co.uk. And you can, if you go down to the bottom, it says latest news, and it does give you the people who have been on the show in season 2 and how to find them. And as I say, make the most of the offers that these guys have put out. And my last interview was with Terry Tucker, a cancer survivor, as he calls himself, and someone who's had such a remarkable life and career. And again, blessed, he's done loads of podcasts recently and love to tell his story. And he's, again, such a positive person, dealing with something that's, it really, in all honesty, is very difficult to be dealing with in life. But again, a fantastic message. And again, as we called the episode, motivational check, a real motivational check for me to listen to such an amazing story. And it goes on, as I say, I've had such great connections with people. People have helped me understand the people I've interviewed, some great connections, a great group of people that I've met in the US. And again, Canolians, if you're listening, it's fantastic to have been welcomed into your group. Great people that I'm hoping to work with and going forward. So that's really good. And just overwhelmed by the support that we had for our Walk for Autism. Again, we finished that, as of this recording, at £1,133 raised for the National Autistic Society. So we've just had an absolutely amazing season, and I just wanted to spend this few minutes just today just saying thank you to the wonderful people around the Inside the Orange. And I want to say a massive thank you to my wife and my children for their patience while I go and record and I do the stuff that I do. and who just are there every single day to inspire me and to help me live the Inside the Orange values.
People don't pay to see Reginald Dwight. They pay to see Elton John.
So today I wanted to talk about a film that helped me in my journey of self-awareness. Now, as I've said, throughout this season, the guests I've had on all were kind of linked with self-awareness. A lot of the people I spoke to talked about a time where they had to become self-aware, or found out that they were self-aware, or discovered themselves, something along those lines. And something that was really important to me was the film Rocketman, the Taron Egerton film about the life of Sir Elton John. Now, I'm a big Watford supporter, so Elton John has always been a little bit of an influence in my life. But it was so interesting to see just how much I took from the film. Now, self-awareness, and I can't stress enough, is what I took from the film. Okay, so I'm not claiming to have had the success of Elton John. I can't write music. I used to be a singer. Now, this is kind of takes me back to where the story begins. So I've always enjoyed singing, and through my late teens, early 20s, I used to sing in pubs and clubs. That's where I met my wife. And something for me always felt good about the applause of people. I've always been a bit of a performer. Even my family will say that when I was little, I loved to show off. I loved to perform. And when I got into singing and when I got into that element of performing, it was very interesting how quickly applause can kind of get under your skin, kind of get into your way of living. And it's a very, very difficult thing to come away from. Now, we all know, again, if you haven't seen the story of Rocketman, please go and watch it. It's a very good film. But it's not unfair to say that the story featuring Elton John talks a lot about his battle with drink, with drugs, and a lot of addictions. There's bulimia, there's a sex addiction, there's anger management. There's a lot of issues that he had. Now, again, I'm not claiming to have had any of this, but I had a very difficult time breaking myself away from performing, and that went into my working life. I was a performer. Now, there is a fantastic lyric in the song Rocketman, which says, "I'm not the man they think I am at home." Now, this is where I want to start this kind of journey. So as I kind of managed and as I led, I found myself portraying more of a character, portraying more of a larger than life, always smiling, singing, dancing, lunatic of a leader, I suppose, in a want of a better phrase. And there was a lot of unhappiness with that. There was a lot of, that wasn't the real me. And this is where the story came from. And this is where the idea of Rocketman kind of made me so emotional when I watched it. Now, there's a wonderful line in the film which says, "People don't pay to see Reginald Dwight. They pay to see Elton John." That line was so powerful to me that I, although wasn't, again, I'm not claiming to have had the career of Elton John, but that was a conversation that I could have took the name out and put my name back into those when talking to people in my life who cared for me and who loved me. That I couldn't go to work as someone that just did the job. I had to go in as this larger in life, this character, this expressive person, this person that nothing seemed to faze me. Everything was all right, happy-go-lucky. Nothing could be further from the truth. The guy that sat at home was more quiet, more introverted. And I sit here today, I'm an introvert. I'm 100% an introvert. I just have the ability to be an extrovert in public. When I feel I want to talk, when I feel I've got a message, when I feel I need to be the strength for someone else, that is where I get my strength of extrovert. And again, it was something that was very, very nicely put by podcast guest Mark Holson. Now, I didn't kind of talk about him in the introduction because I was going to talk about this as it. So Mark's probably switched off by this point and gone, he hasn't thanked me. But this was the point. We talked in our conversation about extrovert and introvert behaviour. And it's very interesting. We spoke about the introvert when they are in an extrovert environment, taking that kind of fuel from others to be able to be that person. But the trouble was, and this is where it probably affected me, I wasn't able to be the introvert I needed to be. I didn't think that person was able to be around. He wouldn't inspire people. He wouldn't make people want to make a difference. And there's such a wonderful thing, and why I link it back to the film, the beginning of the film, there's an image of Elton John, played by Taron Egerton, and he's walking down this corridor, and he bursts through these doors in full, almost, it's a devil regalia costume. It's a real big costume. There's a, boa, there's horns, there's this huge kind of presence coming through the door. And when he sits down, again, I urge you to see the film, but he sits down in this kind of rehab, and he has to talk about himself. Now, the most wonderful thing about the film is that as he talks, as he tells his story, he removes layers. And in the end, he's sitting in a dressing gown. Okay, this is kind of how far he goes. But he has to remove these layers of himself. He has to find himself in this meeting. And he has to become Reginald Dwight again. And I had to become Rich. Now, Rich is someone, again, I had to understand that the person that was the larger life person was me, but I wasn't being true to myself because I wasn't being that person all the time. And I'm not saying that you can't be an extrovert in public and introvert, but you need to make sure they are the same person. They are the same human being. They come from the same DNA. And they work together. They don't work as in you can't recognise one for another. And that was where I got to. I didn't know where one ended and one began. And that was probably the most interesting thing. As I sat in that cinema in 2018-19, when the film came out, and I sat in that cinema and I heard people don't pay to see Reginald Dwight, they pay for Elton John. With these words coming through and watching the kind of person do that. And the reason I want the Inside the Orange to be successful, the reason I want it to work, is because I think the message is simple with people. That people out there put on a different person for who they are at work. And that could be anyone. That isn't just people who lead teams who have to go out and look like they make a difference. These people can be the employees you have. Someone that has to put a smile on their face to go to work. Someone who has to become someone else to go to work. I want these people to be able to find themselves and be themselves at work. And when people say about turning up to work as the real you, as the authentic you, that actually is true, that you are turning up, but you're also allowed, that businesses allow you. And it's not just a face value of, we want you to be you, but can you just be you smaller? Can you just be you less, you but less you? Because that isn't self-awareness. You're not allowing your team to be self-aware and to understand who they are. You need them to understand who they are and allow them to be who they are. And that is the only way that it will be done. Now, I really want to be comfortable with people seeing both sides of me. And as I've kind of grown since I've seen the film and as I've become more self-aware, that little bit of introvert you do see. I am able to show vulnerability, and again, it's another key word we've used so often this season, and in fact last season on the podcast. Vulnerability. Let people see the real you. Let people see your mistakes, and let people see that you make mistakes like anyone else. Because when we allow people to do that, people will be so much more trusting. People will be so much more engaged in your business. Now, one of the most wonderful things about Rocketman is how it ends. Now, with a lot of biographies, you know, the ends are sometimes tragic, and this is why I think it's one of the good things with the biography has come out during Elton's life, is that he can actually end that in a positive way. He's found love, but he only found love when he found himself. And again, this is my interpretation of it, and again, please, you know, there are a lot of things that we do have to be careful of, because obviously Elton John was in a time when he couldn't be himself because of the time, and again, that shouldn't have ever been allowed to happen, and that shouldn't have ever been the case. But again, he had to find himself, he had to love himself before he loved someone else, and that was so important. And he went through a journey, and he you know, it's so lovely now as a Watford fan, as another human being, to see him at Watford with, you know, his husband and his children, and he's happy, and it's fantastic to see, and we want to continue seeing that. But I love the idea of the film. I love the idea of the message and how much it could speak to other people, and that's how it spoke to me. Now, there are times when I still am the person, and I still have to look at myself, and I still go through times where I have to rein myself in, and I have to understand myself and understand others. That is what it's all about. It's about understanding others and understanding yourself. And if anything I've learned from that film and my own journey of self-awareness, it's that people who love you, people who support you, will still be there, regardless which one you are that turns up. They will still be there. And they are the people that will tell you when you're not being the right version, or when you're being the wrong version. And again, I say that very carefully because I talk about understanding people, but the people that love you, again, Mark Holson talked about the word critical friend, a critical friend, someone that will tell you when you need to hear that critical words, but they are a friend because they say it from a place of love. And again, Mark's kind of story and listening to Rocketman, it was something that kind of all came together, and I thought to myself, this episode has been coming, but I wanted to get this episode right. And I don't want to end it on a cliche of I'm still standing or anything else like that. But what I do urge you, every single person, is just look for something. Look for something that may change how you feel about life. It may be a piece of music. It might be a film like myself. It might be a piece of art. It might be a book. It might be a poem. It might be anything. But what is that one thing that makes you realise just how awesome you are as you are? Find that. And guys, please comment anywhere, message me, anything like that. I really want to hear it. I really want to know about it, because I think we can all have something in our lives sometimes that just changes how we see things, how we do things, and why we do things, and why we are who we are. And just take that little bit of self-awareness away and understand who you are before you try to understand others. And again, from the Understanding People podcast, it comes from having to understand myself before I try to understand someone else. But it's also important to understand others while you're saying what you want to say. So the great line, I believe it is, and if I get this wrong, this is going to be a teller, but seek first to understand, then to be understood. So guys, I will be back in the future. The book is going to get worked on. We're doing some research for it now. We're doing a lot of reading and a lot of work and a lot of conversations. If you still do want to be on the podcast, I'm not doing a clear season now till next year, but I will still be doing podcast episodes as and when. We've got the incredible Godwin Di Battista, who is doing his 165-mile walk, and we will be covering that. And we've got just so many little bits and pieces that we want to keep going on. So guys, please go to insidetheorange.co.uk, message me on Instagram, Facebook, all the Inside the Orange or the Inside the Orange podcast, Twitter, Orange Watts. It all comes in a minute, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update of where you can get stuff. Find me on Clubhouse, Rich Stevens at Inside the Orange. Honestly, I'm getting used to Clubhouse, and I'm on there more and more, and I love listening. So even if I'm not speaking, I love listening to people's stories. So I will always try and listen to people, and I love it. So guys, thank you so much for not just season 2, but season 1, season 2, the love I've had across LinkedIn. Again, you can find me on there. LinkedIn, Instagram, all the places you've shared love. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Please leave reviews. Please subscribe. Please like, and just keep sharing the love. And let's help everyone understand someone a little better. Goodbye and take care, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode. If this podcast is something you enjoy, then please subscribe to the podcasts and make sure you like and share so more people can hear our message. Remember, if you have any questions for me or my guests, you can get in touch via our website, insidetheorange.co.uk, on Twitter at OrangeWatts, on Instagram at Inside the Orange, or on Facebook on the Inside the Orange podcast. And finally, there's the email of insidethisorange@gmail.com. All these links will be available in the description. Thanks for listening, goodbye and take care.